It's Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman. This is another one of these episodes of the Prodigal Children coming home. So here's a little background history, a little quick thumbnail on Deep Focus. I started doing the show, started at WKCR a long time ago, and I started doing this program in 2008. And it wasn't until COVID, 2020, that I started doing the podcast. And so I assembled as many shows as I could from past shows that I'd recorded in one format or another, mostly CDs. And as you might have heard me say, if you're a regular listener to the show, my most frequent guest across all those years has been Eric Person, who's a great friend, fantastic musician, and super insightful person that I love listening to music with. And that experience that Eric and I shared, and also other musicians I shared with on tour, on the road, in the van, in the backstage, in the hotel room, etc., kind of was the driving idea behind putting Deep Focus together. And Eric, when I would record the show, and I would just archive it on CD. He'd say, "Oh, let me hang on to one of those. I'll give it back to you." And sometimes I'd get it back from him. Sometimes I wouldn't. This one, and a lot of the stuff, ends up sitting in a drawer or wherever. I do it. Other people do it. Maybe you do it. And this was a lost episode that Eric, when he was on the show recently, gave me this CD from 2008. So I'm sharing it here. It's not a complete program. In fact, I guess this was the middle of probably what was 3 CDs. So it's an hour and change of this one episode that you've never heard unless you happen to be listening on November 3rd, 2008. Don't go looking for the first part of the show. Don't go looking for the last part of the show unless they turn up, and I will definitely post them here if they do. But here's this one little orphan show. And Eric came on. This was when I was just starting this format. Now, we always do the whole show about one artist. Back then, we were kind of finding our way through it. So Eric and I started with a live recording of Herbie Hancock's, what's his so-called Mwandishi band, Septet. And this was the band that he started, the kind of electric band that he started when shortly after he'd left playing with Miles Davis. And then before he started the Headhunters band, it's one of the last gigs of the Mwandishi band. And you'll hear that playing as the show starts. Then Eric and I talk about it. We introduce the next part of the show, which is a really another exciting recording of Beaver Harris, Don Pullen, 360-degree music experience. So those are the two things we're talking about. We talk kind of a lot. I'm telling you now. And, but it's another little window into this world. Okay, here we go. It's one of one. So this is November 3rd, 2008, Eric Person. And we're going to start with the music of Herbie Hancock. Enjoy. It's Deep Focus. Sadly, that is how that piece ends. And might see if we can squeeze a little bit more out of it somehow. But we've been listening to music from Herbie Hancock Septet, March 22, 1973 in Boston. And once again, let me run down for you the band. Eddie Henderson on trumpet and flugelhorn. Oh, great apologies to Julian Priester on trombone, who was right in the middle of that solo.
Chopped off.
That was not my idea, I have you know. But that was how the CD cut out, unfortunately. And Benny Maupin playing the reeds, doing some interesting flute work on that piece. Dr. Pat Gleason playing the synthesizer. Buster Williams on bass, Billy Hart playing drums. Got a guest percussionist by the name of Scorch. At least that's the only name we have for him. Herbie Hancock playing Fender Rhodes piano. And, it might have been. We were hearing that cowbell we assumed was Scorch. That could have been Herbie, maybe. Or somebody. I don't know. Maybe not. In any case.
It could have been any of those
Could have been any of those guys. Yeah. That's true. Wasn't, well, who knows?
Well, we still haven't got that call for Scorch in yet.
That's true. Nobody coughed up any information about Scorch. But you made an interesting comment a moment ago. Let me just tell you once again, this is WKCR FM New York, or maybe you're listening on WKCR.org on the net. You can listen to us anywhere around the world where you have a good connection. So,
matter of fact, I sent out a bulk email about this. I should have some fans over in Europe listening and
staying up late.
Well, London, maybe London, Switzerland. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was going to hear a show. Was it Herbie? Yeah, I think it was Herbie, matter of fact. Wow. And then she was going to check out the show after. Check out this. So, Moni, if you're listening, I'm talking about you.
Greetings to our friends on the continent. And this program, Jazz Alternatives, every weeknight from 6 to 9 p.m. you can tune this in. Tonight we're doing a special thing we call Deep Focus. My name is Mitch Goldman, and from time to time I'll have a guest musician up, and we will explore one live recording from one very intriguing band, and I will draw out of the guest as much as I can about what we've been hearing. And our guest tonight, I'm very happy to say, has been Eric Person. Eric, thank you for your kindness and generosity, sharing your thoughts and ideas with us.
This is fun.
Speaking of generosity, you made an interesting comment about Herbie.
Of course I did.
Would you like to share that with the group?
Okay.
You were just talking about Herbie's generosity, actually, musically speaking.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was just commenting about, as you listen to this recording, and, Herbie's extremely generous with the amount of solo space he's given the musicians, and we listened to a song that was 40 minutes long. I mean, like, I've done gigs and I look back, listen back to what we recorded, and I'd be like, oh, okay, that song was 20 minutes long or 17 minutes. I'd be like, oh, that was a long song. 40 minutes is when you like giving a lot of cats a lot of room. So I mean, he has a big group here, but you heard on that first composition, Benny played a long solo, Eddie played a long solo, Julie played a solo, then Herbie played a very long solo. So I mean, it's almost like each one of them got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's I think that's that generosity probably did come from him working with Miles, because Miles was the same way. He gave those guys a lot of room. I mean, he never cut off guys like Wayne. Yeah. I mean, I know Herbie kind of got cut off a lot of times, but
But it's funny. I know you read Miles' autobiography. he talks in some pretty cutting ways
Yeah.
about some guys he shared the bandstand with.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you're right. On the bandstand, he did have a real generosity, but he doesn't come off as like a warm-hearted guy exactly.
Yeah.
In that.
Well, I think too, man, when you really get down to it, like there's some musicians who music is their religion, and Miles is definitely like that. I mean, you've obviously went to hear some musicians where it was like they could have been lawyers,
Yeah.
But I mean, Miles and guys like Train, they and Herbie obviously, that's their religion, man.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, that's something. I'm not an intimate of Herbie Hancock's, but I've worked with him and spent some time with him, and that comes through very quickly. That is, sincere isn't quite the right word, but it goes all the way through him.
Yeah.
It really does, and that comes through pretty clearly.
Yeah. I remember an interview that I saw that Miles did, and he was talking to the cat, and I can't remember what the guy. I think it was that interview that guy did with Miles on 60 Minutes, and Miles was saying like, no, he asked Miles if he didn't have the popularity and fans or whatever, would he still play music? And Miles was like, yeah, of course. He's like, music it runs through me. And he was like, I'm hearing it now. And the guy couldn't fathom like, him be like hearing music while he's doing this interview. But that's the way it is, man. It's like a real musician, creative musician, like hears music and everything, and so, that's where it's at.
What about the sonic space that Herbie's creating with this band for himself as a soloist?
The sonic space coming from...
in terms of rhythm, in terms of concept, in terms of sonically, in terms of harmonically, he's creating an environment for his soloing.
Yeah.
As well as, his band leading. Any thoughts about that?
Good question. I mean, the thing is, I think if you really look at it, man, when Herbie started soloing, it was like he started pulling everybody with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it was really kind of like, whatever he wanted to do, he was going to do it, I mean, because really when Herbie started soloing, like, it was almost like Billy Hart was like, okay, now it's on.
Mm-hmm.
It's me and Herbie's show now, and it's almost like he left everybody behind. So, I mean, Herbie's just one of those kind of musicians, man. He can play anything at any time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Anything at any time, and it's very few musicians who are like that. Train was like that. He could play anything at any time. So,
yeah. Herbie also, this music somebody might denigrate this music saying, well, it's very simple. I mean, if you listen to it musically, all it is this, simple ostinato and this sort of beat and this, noodle over it, big deal.
And an A or B flat or whatever.
But then if you listen to, some of the ways that Herbie's comping, some of the chordal stuff that he's doing is very, very advanced musically.
Well, the thing is, that's... the simpler the music allows those guys to find the freedom in the music. I know a lot of times when musicians bog their music down with a lot of chords and stuff and these odd meters, you really lock the music in, That's why, like, sometimes I'll write, like, I'll sometimes even write a song where I'll write it in a way that allows freedom to stay in the music, so it doesn't just become like, oh, that's just some kind of tight song. I'm not trying to write some kind of Madonna song or something like that. So it's just kind of like, it's kind of what you want to say with your pieces. But I've often been writing, and I'll be thinking of the musicians I have in the band or or the overall concept of the band, and I'll write something in a way that I say, okay, this is the bass line, but after you play it like 4 or 5 times, just kind of like start doing a theme and variations, moving away from that, or
in that
keeps
sense,
it interesting.
You think maybe as much of an influence as Miles obviously is, maybe Coltrane's also a big influence, because very easy comparison, listening to the evolution of Coltrane from, Giant Steps, which was as locked in as you could get just about, to, his 20-minute jams with minimal chords.
Well, I think that's what happened with Train. I think he realized that all these chords were a straitjacket, and so
obviously all these guys, I would guess probably every one of them had a chance to hear Coltrane play many times, may have played with him, and were probably, to this day, obviously musicians are in awe of Coltrane.
Yeah,
he probably cast a long shadow here too.
Yeah. I mean, that whole Sheets of Sound thing that Train did really didn't last that long, because it must have been a heavy burden, And Giant Steps, we don't have any recordings of Train playing Giant Steps live. I haven't seen not one. And you got the studio versions, which he did quite a few alternate takes and this and that. But as far as like playing it live, he didn't play it that I know of any times. I mean, he might have done it, but we don't have any recordings. And when he came,
you know what? He didn't really. This is funny, because just a couple of weeks ago, Coltrane didn't really have a working band when he made that record. He went in the studio to do that. He didn't really have a working band until '60.
Yeah.
And I think he had moved on by then.
Giant Steps came out in '59.
Right.
So the next year, you would think possibly he could have been still, in that. But I think by the time '60 came, music was
thinking
moving.
About
music was moving so quickly that he was already like, I'm into the modes, and you start seeing some of those records that was on Atlantic, and it was like he would kind of still have the Giant Steps changes, and then like that might be the bridge, and then like the top would be like some like vamp, So he was trying to balance it, and then he must have been like, after a while, just like forget all these chords and deal with the mode. I mean, we got thousands of versions of Impressions, man.
Right.
Cause
not to mention My Favorite Thing, Naima. That's true.
Yeah, because it opened things up, And so when you come to like this music, this Herbie Hancock stuff, it only made sense to kind of like keep the freedom there, because that's what made stuff, really interesting and fun to play, instead of being like, we got all these charts and, we got all these chords and you got to memorize this. Sometimes it's too much.
It absolutely fits with the whole philosophy and aesthetics of what was happening at that time. And you were talking about, these guys were out of their tight little suits and, wearing dashikis and
wearing sandals on stage, shorts and sandals. Come on, man, you fired.
It's a different time. So, let me just remind the listeners, we call this Deep Focus, and Eric Person's my guest. We are digging as deep as we can into the music of Herbie Hancock in March of '73. Again, this was getting to a breaking point for Herbie before he exploded this band and reformed with the Headhunters and went in a whole new direction. This was one of the later gigs from this ensemble. I might have queued up those last few minutes that for some reason, I'll tell you now, the CD just skipped. That's what happened. So shall we see if we can get this thing to track again?
We'll
give it one try. We'll give it one try.
One shot.
Let's see what happens.
One shot.
You ready?
Deal.
You got your seatbelt on?
Yeah.
Here we go. We're going back to Boston, '73, Herbie Hancock.
Thank you. Benny Marvin on alto flute. Dr. Eddie Henderson on trumpet and flugelhorn. Julian Priester on trombone. Billy Hart on drums. Buster Williams bass. And Dr. Patrick Gleason on ARP synthesizer. Sitting in on congas. Scorch. Yeah. Let's hear for Scorch on congas. Thank you, brother. And our sound man is Fundi. Yeah. Yeah, now that we've done our radio stints, we can relax now for the next half an hour. And then we have a last set to do. Last night, I think a lot of people walked out because they thought we would finish after the second set. And we had 3 sets. So, those of you who would like to, I suppose can stay. Thank you.
Good. Okay, we've been.
We had to give you that last little bit of Herbie's outro. Wasn't quite as dynamic as one might hoped it would be, but revealing. I think hearing this handful of people who were, feeling it.
Yeah. I mean, and you heard then, about he tried to explain why he thought people walked out, the day before.
Also, now for you, Eric, as a as a band leader, and you got to be a bit of a businessman and everything else.
Yeah.
The difference between "Thank you, good night, get home safe," and if you'd like to stay for the last set.
Yeah.
Right? It's a little
whole different vibe. I mean, and back then they weren't trying to sell albums on the gig either. Like
right.
He might have had a different thing going. Like if he needed to sell a product on the gig,
It's very common listening to this music, and the reality is you don't know on a given night. People, you listen to textbook example, The Great Concert of Eric Dolphy, this album that came out with that title. It's just a night in a club, downtown. Yeah. You don't know what 35 years later is going to come off as a historic moment. And maybe this is an historic moment, maybe it's not. I mean, it's an interesting moment. Maybe not the greatest solos any of these guys played, some of them, but, a revealing window into this period of time with some very interesting music and people who went on to do some great things. And, you expect to hear this thunderous applause of, the millions of people who would become influenced by this and hear this and listen to this music. And it's, hey, man, it was just, another night of getting home after work and, whatever else was going on in Boston that night.
Well, see, that's the thing. For me, I mean, like we've speculated about like the life of this band and how short-lived it was per se, and Herbie then moved to something that was commercial and like propelled him to, a larger audience, more money, better venues, and when you look at that, more audience, more money, better venues, this makes a lot of sense, and then it starts being like, this don't make a lot of sense, having this band. I mean, it's like great artistically. I feel great playing it. I love these cats, and I love playing free. I love being able to go in wherever I want to go. But, the economics is a big part of, playing music. It's the music business,
Well, an interesting sidelight on that, and somebody might hear this and think it's kind of a self-serving sort of dodge, but maybe it was said with complete sincerity too, though. At the time, in interviews, Herbie Hancock said that as a practicing Buddhist, the opportunity to bring joy to a lot of people is a very high spiritual calling. So, we might like to think that maybe this band reached some artistic heights that he didn't quite go to with Headhunters, but in another sense, he was drawn to try to do something. Yeah, you're right. It brings more money, and you get, the nice dressing room and everything. But, Herbie might also say, well, this is really what I was brought here to do. I don't know. Who's to say?
Well, yeah, I think that's what we always like, the story behind the music. If Herbie was here, we could ask him, but it's very interesting. I mean, the thing is, that's one thing for me as an artist I can't stand. Playing a gig and it'd be like, 20 people out in the audience, 10 people, that kind of, I can't stand that. That thing, it goes to my soul,
Yeah, but you also came up with the ethos that, even if there's one person there,
yeah.
You got to do, this is your moment.
I agree. But I'm just saying, like, I brought my band on the road many times, and I have encountered, nights like that. And I just remember those are the things that's made me, question, not doing it as a living or anything, but like sometimes like playing a particular city or playing a particular venue or something like that. But I just remember like, having where the music's not like because the thing is, like, it takes a lot of effort to bring this music out here. It takes a lot of rehearsal. You're sitting there composing, so that takes a lot of time. You have to rehearse, you have to practice yourself, then practice the band, and then you then bringing the band on the road. You're getting the rental van. You're flying into town. Dealing with tickets. Making sure guys come to the airport in time. So it's a lot of effort. And then so when you come to the gig, and then it's only like 10 people there or whatever, 15 people, whatever. That, man, I tell you, that's just one thing. I'll never be able to get used to that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Shannon Jackson. It's something that I definitely remember from him and imparting to the people that worked with him that, you don't know who's in the audience and, what opportunity is there for you? What opportunity is there for you to bring something to them? And you might look out and see a handful of people, but, he always would come with whatever he would bring to Carnegie Hall or whatever the venue might be.
Yeah, and that's the way to be. I mean, like if some musician is like, I'm he was doing a gig, let's say, and he was like, I'm sorry I didn't play as good as I could. I was thinking about bills and I'm having a problem with my lady. I'd be like, you fired, man. You can't be on my stage. Because it's like when you get on stage, at least this is how I am, it's like it's all music. I don't think about anything. It's like you are encapsulated, and obviously you want to reach out to the people and communicate and everything, but it's like all the external stuff, it like really doesn't matter. Like, you're one with yourself, and you're just trying to give it all, and that is whether it's one person or 10 people or 10,000, you gotta give who you are,
You're listening to WKCR. My name is Mitch Goldman. Eric Person is my guest tonight. We're doing something we call Deep Focus, and we have explored the music of Herbie Hancock in particular on the night of March 22, 1973 in Boston, Massachusetts at the Jazz Workshop. And Eric's been very generous with thoughts and ideas and experiences and insight. And if you want to experience firsthand what Eric's talking about, then you want to be at the Blue Note 2 weeks from tonight, Monday night, November 17th, 2008, and you will have the opportunity to hear a brand new band, Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about what people might expect.
Well, it's going to be a fantastic evening of music. And you know what? This is my first new project, let's just say, in 10 years. I've been basically doing, my band Metaphor, for 10 years. And I've had some great personnel, and I've done, a few records with that configuration and concept, that's behind Metaphor. And it was just really like after last year, I was just like, you know what? I've been thinking about having a new band for a while. I felt like it was a certain part of my writing that I wasn't able to bring across in Metaphor, and I wanted to have it explored in this new project. So Metamorphosis is basically the next step in bringing out some flavors and some things I've been getting into, and some things I even set aside and never even explored. So it's I've been doing a lot of writing lately, and it's been very exciting. It's a lot of work. Even just writing charts is a lot of work. But I'm looking forward to the performance. The gig is basically, it's an all electric band. I call it my Rhythm and Groove project, and that's what we're putting out there. It's rhythm and groove, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fresh. It's not fusion. It's my music. It's how I express and I view through my lens, how I view the world, how I view music, how I view what's going on in our world now. It's a lot of different textures, grooves, pulses, and it crosses genres, in a bigger way, I think, than in anything I might have done before.
Now, is Metaphor still going to be a working ensemble? Are you going to have both bands? Are you going to? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm going to have both bands. The thing is, I've laid a lot of track from doing festivals and venues all over the country over the last 10 years with Metaphor. So it's going to always be something I want to be able to jump back into, whether for a particular gig or just for my own writing's sake, or some of the relationships I built up in that group. So that's definitely going to still be viable, and I have some things already scheduled for next year with that band. But with Metamorphosis, I do hope to get into some other venues and festivals that maybe wouldn't be interested in an acoustic jazz group. So yeah,
cool.
There'll be some new ground laid.
Eric Person, his group Metamorphosis, will be at the Blue Note 2 weeks from tonight.
Yeah.
Can people call up and make reservations?
They can call the Blue Note. Anybody interested can go to bluenote.net, and all the information to get to the Blue Note, which is in New York City on West 3rd Street. All the information's there. They can also go to my website, ericperson.com. And if you're on...
Can they order your CDs there?
Yes. I have all the links. I have a new CD out entitled Rhythm Edge, which would be a good primer.
Mm-hmm. You might want to study up before the show.
You dig?
If they order today, will they have it in time?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, CD Baby is a great place to get my CDs. I got CDs there, and Amazon.com. But, yeah, so it's out there. You can find me.
We're here till 9 p.m. and
then we're gonna go to Ollie's.
Exactly. No, you're not done yet. We're still in the archives. Yeah. We're still taking our deep focus, and I'm very excited about the next recording we're going to go to. We're not going to have the opportunity to go anywhere near as deep as we went into the Herbie Hancock. But you know what? This is something that deserves the bright light shined on it every bit as much in my book.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce this band that we're going to listen to?
Yeah, this is good. This is a group called Beaver Harris's 360-degree musical experience. It's basically a collaboration between Don Pullen, the pianist, and Beaver Harris, the drummer. This is a very short recording. It's basically one track, almost 20 minutes long, and it features Arthur Rames on tenor sax, Don Pullen on piano, Fred Hopkins on bass, Beaver Harris on drums, and Francis Haynes on steel drum. This is from the Public Theater 1 year after I came to New York, 1983. And matter of fact, my first performance in New York was at the Public Theater with the John Hicks Big Band.
Really?
Yep, 1982.
Well, there was a great series. I think this came from a radio broadcast. They were doing some fantastic recordings in the Public Theater for those shows. And I think this might have been part of that same series.
Okay.
And maybe we could talk a little bit about each of these guys.
Yeah.
What I love about this band is it really walks the line. These are all musicians who have a huge respect and knowledge of the tradition of the music and no problem busting out of it.
Yeah.
And I would definitely put Beaver Harris in that category, who was actually started playing very late, came out of
20.
Yeah, 20 years old before he started playing drums. Came out of Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And I think the thing that people most associated him with was playing with Albert Ayler.
Yeah.
And that genre of music, those ESP recordings, New York, late 60s. But he's got a huge musical language. Did you know him at all?
I didn't. I didn't see that guy around.
You know what? He lived in this neighborhood.
Okay.
We're uptown. And I used to see him on the street all the time. And I used to go and hear him play. And very friendly guy.
Yeah.
Very had a lot of young musicians come through his band. I think these guys are mostly contemporaries of his, with the exception of Arthur Rames.
Yeah.
And but one of those older cats at that time. Not that he was so old. He actually sadly passed away, I think, at 55. But a kind of stern, loving educator. There was like a very high set of standards, but he gave you the opportunity to try to get there. And a lot of
cool.
Yeah, a lot of cool, interesting little things that he would share. And I remember him one time blasting a bass player who was playing with him, a young guy.
On stage?
No, I think it was in a rehearsal that I was at. Because he was sitting. He was like kind of perching on a stool. It's like, you cannot play this music sitting down.
Yeah.
And I never thought really about,
how
the difference that would make.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's a big difference.
Yeah. Things like that. He was a lot of million little stories. Now, Fred Hopkins is not somebody that you would have to lay that on. You want to talk about him a little bit?
Fred was a great, underrated avant-garde bass player, and he sounds fantastic on this recording. Ironically, when I first came to New York, I used to organize rehearsals because I was kind of like trying to find musicians that I like to play my music. So I used to go down and rehearse once a month with the guys I selected at Fred Hopkins Air Studios down in the Lower East Side. And they had a nice little thing going. I mean, it was a nice little rehearsal spot. Fred ran it, and who else was running that? Henry Threadgill. Yeah. And it was cool. I mean, I remember, rehearsing there, and guys like Lester Bowie would come through there, and it's just like a great adventure back then. That's it's not really like that anymore in New York. I know a lot of young cats don't really. Well, I'm still young, but you know what I mean. A lot of younger guys don't really understand that kind of statement. But I mean, when the gods of this music were walking amongst you, like Woody Shaw, Art Blakey, Dexter Gordon, these guys were hanging in the club, sitting at the bar. You would see them walking down the street all the time. That's monumental. And it's a different vibe.
And you know what else?
Yeah.
We could afford to live in the
you
city.
dig.
We were, 20, whatever. Yeah. And, you were in Manhattan or your neighborhood in Brooklyn. I remember, I lived in
Fort Greene.
Yeah, when I was in Fort Greene, I'd see, Lester around. And
your rent wasn't $1,000.
No, it was not.
Or more.
And, well, it was scraping. It was still scraping.
That was another commentary. But
no, it's, you know what? These are the things that make the music, though. You know, I mean, we could get all like misty-eyed about like, oh, those were the days. And it was hard then, you know, and there was a lot more crime. There was a lot more things that made it very tough. And, you know, we didn't have anything. But,
but not to cut you.
We did have access to the music.
And the thing is, I mean, this is New York. It ain't supposed to be Disney World.
Right.
You know.
Right. And those things do shape the music.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Resonates, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, listening to this, Don Pullen, man, I mean, you know, how do you give a capsule biography of this guy?
Yeah.
You want to give it a shot?
You take this.
Well, I'll just say a master of coming out of playing with Charles Mingus in particular, and you know, of again, you know, it's a running theme through this conversation, but that idea of genre smashing and breaking down the lines, which seem to get, those walls just seem to rebuild themselves in people's minds.
Yes.
You wouldn't think you'd have to keep learning this lesson over and over.
Yep.
But a guy like Don Pullen, masterful, huge chops, gigantic ears, and love of different traditions.
Yeah.
Not even just, you know, various jazz traditions, but also, you know, one of the great progenitors in my mind of bringing global world influences into jazz, and just another great spirit of love.
And dig the intro that he does, because this basically starts with an intro with him playing some very, you know, his technique was there, his harmonies was there, his vision as a piano player was unique. I mean, you know, it's all there, and you'll hear it on the recording, but definitely an unsung hero.
Absolutely,
for sure.
He was more or less co-leader, I believe, of the band. Two other players, Francis Haynes, a name not known by nearly enough steel drummer, and I don't hear a lot of him in this recording.
Yeah.
But he is credited, and he was part of the band. He was, I used to see him playing on 34th Street. He used to play Bach Inventions on steel drums.
Wow.
And he was actually one of the cats, I don't know if you know the origin of the steel drums. Steel drums, you know, pans, evolved in Trinidad after World War II. The Marines pulled out and left all these 55-gallon oil drums behind.
Wow.
And these guys took garbage that somebody hadn't bothered to pick up after themselves and created a new instrument and really a new genre of music out of that. And they, you know, tuning it with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect pitch.
Yeah.
And, you know, just creating worlds on this instrument. And I guess Beaver, you know, must have heard him playing where I heard him, and brought him on stage with him, which was a really cool thing.
Man, that's the story. I didn't know that about the Trinidadians making the steel drum like that. But yeah, I mean and you'll see that at all the West Indian street festivals. You know, those cats are in full force. You know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, come to Brooklyn around Labor Day.
Exactly.
You'll hear it.
Yep.
And the last member of the group, you want to talk about Arthur Rames a bit?
Yeah. Yeah, Arthur was something else. I mean, as a matter of fact, you did the Memorial Day broadcast on him.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Because Arthur died in, I think, 89?
So right around there.
89.
Yeah.
And
Young cat.
Yeah, and I didn't know who he was. And I remember for some reason I still have it. I still have it at home. Yeah. And I remember guys like Vernon and
Vernon Reed and Reggie Workman.
Reggie Workman came up, and they were like really speaking highly about him. And since then, I've learned a lot more about Arthur. But Arthur was a fantastic musician who could play tenor sax, piano, and guitar equally well, and on a high level. And he never got his due, but I mean, he has a cult status among people who work with him and heard him. And every once in a
there's
while, you know, there's some discoveries of some recordings, and this is another.
This is one of them for sure.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, this group basically, as far as I know, made one album, ironically titled "A Well-Kept Secret."
This whole band.
More or less. I mean, there were a few. Beaver had a bunch of records. I think, you know, this was probably the best documentation of this version of the band. There's some things from previous years. And something to look out for if you ever see it. Great Ralph Steadman cover art on the Shemp Records label.
Shemp.
And let's hear some music. Don Pullen, Beaver Harris, 360-degree experience. This is at the Public Theater. I don't have an exact recording date. It's either 82 or 83. And we're going to the bandstand. It's Deep Focus on WKCR. I'm Mitch Goldman, my guest, Eric Person. And here we go. Music from Don Pullen, Beaver Harris, 360-degree experience. I love that title, too.
Yeah.
Once again, let me just run down for you who was on that. Co-leaders, Don Pullen playing piano, Beaver Harris, William Beaver Harris on the drums. Nobody called him William that I know of. Maybe. But Fred Hopkins on the bass, Arthur Rames, tenor saxophone, Francis Haynes playing steel drums. And yes, we did hear him in there, actually.
Yeah.
He didn't get a solo, unfortunately, but...
well, we only got 20 minutes on that recording.
True.
Yeah.
Now, this is, not that this band didn't record, not that... There's actually a lot of great records to look out for with Don Pullen leading on a bunch of different labels. A lot of them that have not been issued ever on CD, but, enough scattered around that you will find stuff if you look for it. Beaver Harris also made a bunch of records, not as many as Don Pullen, but a number as a leader. And but I don't know how many you're going to find reissued. Not too many. And this band, this kind of version of this band, that record I mentioned is not the exact same personnel, but a terrific record. Well, still not easy to find. So this music that you just heard, again, you can't buy it. Yeah. It's never been released, and nobody's heard it in 20 years.
Yeah. Nobody even knows who got this recording recorded.
Yeah, but no, I mean, this is straight out of the WKCR archives.
Yeah,
and but by all means, we encourage you to go out if you've enjoyed any of this music from Herbie Hancock, from Don Pullen, Beaver Harris. Please do go out and support this music live and buy these artists' records. And if you've been enjoying listening to our addition to it, then you certainly want to be at the Blue Note 2 weeks from tonight, Monday night. Eric Person leading Metamorphosis for the first time ever anywhere.
It's gonna be monumental.
Might be one of those gigs people look back on 40 years from now.
I mean,
and say,
I would have, and I'm not just saying this because it's me. I mean, but I mean, I think so. I mean, I have some great cats in the group. Zakai Curtis on keyboards and Chulo Gatewood on bass.
Great musician.
And let me not forget Kerry DeNegris on guitar.
Great musician.
And my drummer Brandon Lewis. All of them are just fantastic. And it's gonna be something else.
Eric Person in Metamorphosis at the Blue Note Monday, November 17th. My name is Mitch Goldman. It has been such a pleasure bringing you this music, and we invite you to keep it tuned to Youth Mike coming up next on WKCR FM New York.
Yeah.
I had said maybe that was the middle of 3 CDs originally recorded of this show. It was obviously the last one. I'm guessing it was probably the last of 2. I don't know. It was because it was a full... Anyway, it's all we have. That is what we have. I'm so glad we have it. I'm so glad I was able to share it with you. Got a whole bunch of great new, complete, more recently recorded episodes coming up in the weeks ahead. So I hope you have subscribed to Deep Focus, and you'll always know when a new episode goes up. And all that other stuff about where to find information about us. You go to mitchgoldman.com, my personal website. You could follow us on Instagram, where we are Deep Focus Podcast. And you can email us, which means me, at Mitch Goldman. No, wrong. Scratch that. deepfocusnow at gmail.com, and I'll get that. And all right, hey, take it with you. Tell somebody else about this show, won't you? And you'll be doing something nice for them, something nice for you, and something nice for us. We're just trying to spread the word. We're giving it all away. Isn't it magnificent of these musicians coming and giving their time, and so generous? I'm endlessly amazed and delighted. Happy to share it with you. All right.